This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
6 after on this Tuesday, and welcome to it, my friends. A conversation we've been having here for quite some time is how is Michigan going to respond and react to the closing of 9 coal-fired power plants here in the state, plus a total of 60 around the upper Great Lakes. Some concern was brought to us because there have been comments that, blackouts, rolling blackouts could become the new normal. The price of electricity could go through the roof. And we could have challenges here, which obviously nobody wants to live with and is not an attractive thing for businesses either. Our next guest is Steve Kurmas, the DTE president and CEO. Steve, welcome to the program.
Welcome. Glad to be here.
Well, glad to have you here. So give me an idea. I believe that 2 of these 9 plants are DTE plants that are closing down. First of all, how did you arrive at that decision? Was it something pushed by the EPA, pretty much something you had to do? And which plants are you closing?
Well, it's a combination of things. Most of the current generation of coal plants were built in the early 70s in response to the oil embargoes. The state switched to coal as their base fuel. Those plants are now coming to their end of their useful life. At the same time, the EPA is passing regulations restricting carbon emissions. So the combination of that age and new EPA rules is forcing the retirement of those plants.
True, but
we'll see.
The Supreme Court ruled in your favor. However, you would not be under the current situation. You wouldn't have to force those plants to close because of the ruling from the Supreme Court. Is that right or wrong?
The Supreme Court ruled on the MAT regulations, which had to deal with toxic emissions from coal plants. They have not yet been challenged on the courts haven't been requested a challenge on the carbon rules. So, they're still currently proposed and to be in effect, and we anticipate that in one shape or form they will be. Okay,
so as you look down the road to 2016, we've heard some, doom and gloom predictions, I suppose, Steve, that we could see some areas that have rolling blackouts as part of a new normal. What do you see for DTE customers? Is that a possibility? Is the grid going to be stretched thin with 9 plants closing here? It's 1.5 gigawatts out of the mix here in Michigan, and then 60 plants closed in the Midwest. I mean, that is significant.
Well, it's a little over gigawatt next year, rising to 9 gigawatts in a few years. So it's an increasing problem. And, we are concerned for our customers. Michigan has a hybrid deregulation program in which 10% of the state's electric load is covered by out-of-state energy suppliers. Traditionally, these suppliers have purchased that energy from surplus utility generation. As we rebuild our fleet, we won't have surplus generation available. And the question is, who will build generation to serve that incremental 10%, and who will pay for that generation? And that not only puts those customers at risk because the grid doesn't distinguish one customer from another. They put all customers at risk if, in fact, we come up with 10% short.
Now, one of the things that I understand doing some reading here is that Enrico Fermi, the nuclear plant down in Monroe County, you have the permit, if I'm not mistaken, to build a 3rd reactor there, but have elected not to do that. Why not, sir?
We do have a permit to build Fermi 3, which will be the 2nd reactor at the site. Fermi 1 has long since been abandoned. And what's driving the generation mix in the country right now is the availability and low cost of natural gas. Since natural gas is so inexpensive as a result of the shale gas boom, it's actually much more economical to build in the near term than is nuclear. However, if natural gas prices rise like commodities inevitably do, or if society chooses to put further restrictions on carbon, the only emission-free baseload generation source available in the country is nuclear, and Michigan has a great option available to them to assure future resource adequacy.
So and we're on the line this morning with Steve Kurmas, the president of DTE, the CEO and president there. If, let's say that happens, let's say natural gas prices go through the roof, or there's some restriction on the extraction of shale gas, and the American energy renaissance is slowed at some point, by whichever, whether political or economic factors. How long would it take to build Fermi 3? If you said, okay, today we've decided we're going to go forward with it, is it a 5-year process, 10-year process? How long would it take?
Well, it takes a long time to build all new generation base load. Even our traditional natural gas generation is a minimum of 5 years lead time. Nuclear is probably closer to 10 years. That's why it's so important that we act now to put good, firm energy policy in place to assure that we get a head start on that rebuild, and that everyone is pitching in appropriately to assure availability of the resource.
Well, and basic economics, sir, would lead me to believe that supply and demand. If you're right, and you mentioned a moment ago, you're concerned about the customers here in Michigan because of the 9 gigawatts that'll come out of the grid overall over several years. Well, to me, that would mean that the prices are going to go up, and and having people sit in the dark with $500 electric bills is a good way to stir up the crowd.
Well, if we can pace our generation build appropriately, and we can utilize the least cost generation source available, there will be an increase in electric prices, but we think it's manageable, and our goal will be to keep that increase to 3 to 4% annually, and we believe that can be done if given enough lead time.
But without the lead time, if there's a pinch, if you will, in the system, then all bets are off.
Well, if there's a pinch, it isn't a matter of cost; it's a matter of availability. So if we have a shortage of electricity, and no dollar amount is going to bring that proper amount into the state, we're going to have to do interruptions.
Which, translated quite simply, is blackouts.
Which could be rolling blackouts, yes.
Yeah, so, all right. So
that's what we hope to avoid.
All right, and I'm not trying to be Chicken Little here because it's not the way I operate, but give me an idea. How soon, it's been mentioned that we could see that as soon as the summer of 2016, interruptions in power. If we had, for say, a big heat wave that, drew a lot of power for air conditioners and so forth, is it possible, sir, that we could see rolling blackouts with a heat wave in 2016?
Most likely for 2016, given the magnitude of the shortage, what we would see is interruptible customers, large industrial customers, intentionally interrupted to keep the grid on. So, we would see impacts on the community, but probably not rolling blackouts in 2016, more likely intentional interruptions of large industrial customers.
And how does that, and we've only got like 20 seconds here, but how would that, that's bad for business, isn't it?
It's bad for business, it's bad for the economy. That's why it's important that we act fast and avoid it, support the legislation currently being drafted by Senator Knopf and Representative Nesbitt in the Michigan State Legislature.
All right, sir, I greatly appreciate your time. I look forward to having you back on the program, but a good conversation and an important conversation, I would say, not only for you and I, but for all the listeners as well. Steve Kurmas, thank you so much.
Thanks. Great being here.
Steve Kurmas, the president and CEO of DTE. He seems to think that the problem's worse than I had thought before. Worse than I had thought before. It's 14 after. There's something to think about on this Tuesday.
Getting your day started with news from around the state and around the world. Common Sense Radio. This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Welcome back to it. It's 18 after on this Tuesday, and there's been a bit of a sea change, but it's kind of happened quietly. I don't know that many people have been paying that close of attention, but there's some new polling out, and it seems that Dr. Ben Carson, the quiet little train that thought he could, is moving up the tracks, and he has moved in front of Donald Trump in Iowa and elsewhere. Which it's a pretty big deal because he's quietly been gaining traction and moving along. Doug Sachtleben is here, the communications director for the Club for Growth. Doug, welcome back to the program.
Steve, thanks for having me back on.
The Club for Growth and Donald Trump don't have a love affair, shall we say, which is okay.
Fair enough.
But which is fair to say, right? But it looks like it doesn't really matter because Ben Carson is chugging along, picking up steam. It's pretty good news for you guys, yes or no?
Well, we put out a white paper on Dr. Carson last week and pointed out that there are some concerns. There's some inconsistencies in Dr. Carson's record in terms of, particularly in the medicine area, where he's offered this kind of FEMA-like government-run catastrophic health care idea. Anybody that's watched FEMA operate knows that's kind of questionable. And also almost a nationalization of private insurance companies. I mean, he's obviously had a successful lifetime in the healthcare industry, but has some strong feelings about how to do that. So we've raised some concerns about Dr. Carson as well, but we did look at Donald Trump as really being one of the worst kinds of politicians who will say what people want to hear, and we advertised in that direction in Iowa and think that it had an effect in all of the polls that you're seeing.
All right, so let me ask you something. Trump, there's no love lost between the Club for Growth and Donald Trump. Ben Carson is, from the way you put it, medium, I guess. Who would you guys like to see in this horse race coming out ahead?
We've been out front in terms of our white papers and looking at their economic positions. And mind you, Club for Growth is looking at taxes, trade, regulation, entitlement reform, those issues primarily in that that domain. And we've said Senators Cruz and Rubio both really meet a gold standard in terms of fighting for tax reductions, fighting for lowering regulation. They've walked the talk on those issues, and so those are two. We've said in the past Governor Walker had a strong record. Of course, we know where that ended, and we've also said the same about Senator Paul. The poll numbers don't seem to show a bright future there, but those are folks that we've pointed out as saying they've got strong economic liberty records.
No, Senator Paul facing serious challenges, to say the least, just to keep to remain viable. He says he will remain in the race, however, until votes are cast. We'll see what happens there. We're on the line this morning with Doug Sachtleben, the communications director for the Club for Growth. And Rubio, though, is one of your guys that you say is conservative enough and fiscally responsible enough to get your support.
Yeah, and again, we're looking at, people will look at a lot of issues with these guys. What we do is put forth where they stand on those particular issues, the economic issues. And so I know folks would have different points of view on Senator Rubio, perhaps on immigration or maybe on social issues. Those are areas that we don't touch on, but when we look at taxes, regulation, entitlement, reform, trade, those are areas where he has been consistent in things that he's advocated for, pro-growth policies, and has not only put forth legislation but voted in favor of pro-growth policies. So that's where he's had our support in that way.
Jeb Bush also seems to be having a very tough few weeks, cutting back his staff, cutting back the pay to his staff. In fact, if I didn't know better, I would say the Jeb Bush campaign is in deep trouble today. Is he somebody? I mean, where does he end up on your meter?
Real anomaly. I mean, in the sense that if you go back to Governor Bush's record in Florida, in terms again of those fiscal issues, he really, at the time, was one of the most conservative governors in the country and put forth a lot of pro-growth ideas. What's happened since is we've seen sort of this evolution that I think has troubled, and rightly so, conservatives in statements that seem to be more big government, that seem to see government as more of a solution. And he had been at an economic conference we held in February, and our president even then put the challenge and said that if we can see some of those audacious kind of goals, those things that he would put forth in Florida that were strongly conservative throughout his campaign, it would go a long way toward wooing conservatives. Well, I think we've all watched the campaign and said, where is that? Where is that inspiring conservative leadership that actually governed Florida for 2 terms? Right,
and I guess in the rest of the field, the percentages are so small for Chris Christie or John Kasich at this point that unless they pick up some momentum, I don't see them as being factors, at least not at this point. But Christie and Kasich both have financial resources. Quickly grade those 2 candidates.
Both we've dinged on the area of Medicaid expansion, what they've done in their states. The Kasich story, I think, is probably more well-known just because his legislature voted against any effort to expand Medicaid under Obamacare, and he went around that effort and did so. And we think that's ultimately got a serious price tag for Ohioans in the years ahead. But understanding that as a member of Congress, he was active in the whole balanced budget that happened under Clinton. Christie, the same thing, the Medicaid expansion, and also the state still got the worst tax environment of any state in the country. And I understand his argument that it's a Democrat legislature, but others have faced that too and have made some progress. We've not seen that in New Jersey, and so both of them are, we would say, do not show pro-growth tendencies in some of these key areas.
All right. Well, Doug, we're going to leave it there for today, but I greatly appreciate the conversation. I guess we will continue to see how this field weeds itself out and then continue to update how you grade the players that are coming out on top. Doug, thank you so much.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
There you have it. Doug Sachtleben from the Club for Growth, Communications Director there. It's 25 after on a Tuesday. Liz Peek still to come this morning, one of my favorites here on the Steve Gruber Show.
Keeping you in touch with Michigan and the world.
I see that moon rising. I see trouble on the way. I see earthquakes and
All right. 33 after the hour on the Steve Gruber Show, where we endorse the consumption of bacon, all right? Damn it, I'm going to eat bacon, and that's the way it is, you know. How many things can these folks give you? Well, this could kill you, and this might kill you, and this might. You know what? I'm going to take my chances. I'm going to go out and go for a walk, and hopefully I don't get hit by a car, which will hasten the end of my life. And hopefully I won't suck in too many car exhaust fumes that could hasten the end of my life. But at the end of the day, Americans are living 17% longer today than on the day I was born 50 years ago. So there you have it. So I'm just going to go ahead and enjoy my life, bring some joy to it. You know, money can't buy happiness, but it can buy bacon. And to me, that's somewhat in the right direction. Just saying. Liz Peek, our next guest, columnist for Fox News and the Fiscal Times. And Liz, welcome back to the program, first of all.
Thank you. Good morning. Nice to be with you.
I'm glad you're here. Don't eat bacon. And if you're not going to, please send it to me because I've got room on my plate.
I love bacon. Are you kidding? We'll share.
Good Lord. I mean, can we do anything anymore, Liz, without them trying to scare the daylights out of us?
Oh, I think it's part of a pattern, and it is very frustrating, isn't it? I mean, it's, you know, they talk about how kids are overwhelmed with anxiety these days. No wonder.
I wonder why. Yeah, no
Right.
kidding. Yeah. Well, you know, bacon's going to kill you and red meat's going to kill you. To me, it's all part of the same narrative of, you know, farming is bad and it's creating global warming. So let's make them think that meat is evil. And if we teach them meat is evil, we can get rid of the evil farms and the cows that flatulate. See, and it all makes perfect sense. Good
Yeah, it's discouraging. Even though, by the way, as we have exported our meat-driven diet, other countries have become healthier. They live longer. They get bigger.
Yeah, that's right. You know, the Chinese life expectancy in 1960 was like 47 years, and now it's into its mid to late 60s. When I was born in 1965, the life expectancy was 68 or 69 years. Now it's 80.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a 70% jump. I mean, anyhow, we may live longer, healthier lives, but they'll have none of it. They'll tell us that, you know, capitalism is bad and America is bad, and you're going to kill yourself.
That's it's really quite depressing, isn't it?
Good Lord. No wonder kids are stressed out. You know what, kids? Relax, have some bacon, and watch some cartoons. We'll all be good.
And go sit in the sun.
You know, and speaking of all this, you know, this exactly, you know, that deadly, you know, carcinogenic sun. But speaking of all this is all like an extension of the EPA that wants to come kick in your door and see, you know, how much water you're using and how much electricity and looking after you. It's all this big, you know, blossoming government thing that if Hillary Clinton's elected, we'll get more of it. I mean, that's what you've said, and I agree.
You know, that's exactly right. And I know that there are people on the right today who are damning and blasting John Boehner and the leadership for getting this budget deal done. But you know what? The mission is the White House, because I don't think people realize how damaging 8 years of the Obama administration will have been just to the course of everyone's lives and certainly to the course of trying to run a business. I talk to people all the time who are just at their wits' ends about the endless paperwork and forms that have to be filled out just for something simple like hiring an intern. That has become a big political issue. with days of paperwork. People I know have been investigated because they hired an intern. This is like a 4-person company. I am not kidding. And the Justice Department came in to make sure they were paying the same wages as everybody else, and yada, yada, yada. I mean,
so, okay, help me out here, man, because I started my career in broadcasting as a unpaid intern. Is that not legal now, or what?
No, it's not legal, and it is cutting, tens of thousands probably of young people out of the opportunity that you had and that many had to get started on their career, to find out whether they liked broadcasting. I mean, it is so ludicrously complicated now, but it's just a data point, right? It's just an indication of how preposterous all this stuff has become.
Yeah, let me explain. I mean, I'll tell you this. I hung around that television station in Bozeman, Montana for a year. And I did everything. I swept the floors. I ran the teleprompter. In front of the camera, behind the camera, whatever I could do. And I hung around until they finally decided I wasn't. They were sick of me, but I wasn't going to leave. So they figured they might as well give me a job that actually got something done and accomplished something. And I'm serious. I mean, they kept saying, well, we don't have anything for you. So I don't care. I'll be back tomorrow. See you then. And Gene, the guy that became my boss, he goes, I don't have anything. I can't pay you anything. I said, I don't care. I'll see you tomorrow. Finally, they just gave up and said, I guess he's going to be here. We might as well find a place for him. And that's how internships work. You persist your way into a job.
That's exactly right. But it's not anymore, because that's unfair, I guess. Probably the thinking was that people get those internships largely because their parents know somebody or something like that. It might be one of those things where someone has an advantage. Well, you know what? That's kind of life. And anyway, if you multiply that times 10,000, that's what small business managers and, by the way, big business managers are encountering these days. It's just endless cobwebs of trying to fight through and actually get the job done. I tell you what, it's a serious problem because people have alternatives. People who start up businesses can go to other countries, and
here's what
they
bothers
just get
me.
weighed down. They spend money on legal and tax work instead of hiring another person, and we've seen that.
What bothers me is, the old adage that 90% of life is showing up is true to me. Hard work, there is no substitute for hard work. And I think people that show up and show the gumption, if you will, they show up and do an internship at no charge because they truly believe that's where they want to be. And for me, obviously, it worked out. And for millions of people, it has. To take that away, that's stifling creativity. That's taking away opportunities for people to be their very best and to do something they love. Because if that hadn't happened to me, I'd probably be a ditch digger somewhere. I don't know.
And a very good one, I'm sure.
Very good, yes. Very chatty ditch digger. I'd be chatting people up right there, right now. Mm-hmm.
No, it's serious. I don't know if you saw Hillary Clinton in some of her recent speeches. I think she's actually frightening.
Oh, my God, yes.
And polarizing. That's the other thing. She keeps talking about how she'll get things done, sort of implying that there's a good part of the Obama agenda that did not get done, thankfully. And there are a few things like cap and trade, which were left on the cutting room floor. But she talks about how she's going to get things done, and then she demonizes Republicans in a way that almost Obama has not. I mean, she is worse in terms of shrill kind of calling out Republicans.
Oh, that is so sexist, what you just said, shrill.
Yeah, I know,
it's
exactly, right? I mean, she takes, here are two clips. She takes on Bernie Sanders for talking about how she's shouting on gun control. Shouting, is a sexist word.
Apparently.
That's what happens when women raise their voices. But then also she talks about how she doesn't play the gender card, but yes, she is going to play the gender card. I mean, honestly, it's so false. But here's a thing for you to think about that could make your day sunnier.
All right.
She is under investigation. And this, I think, has been sort of dismissed, if you will, by a lot of Republicans. A lot of people across the country think, the Obama White House is never going to indict Hillary Clinton on all these obstruction of justice or mishandling classified documents issues, etc. But they're underestimating James Comey, the head of the FBI, and this is what I'm writing about today, and it'll be out today, I think. James Comey is a tough character who stood up to George W. Bush, his prior boss.
That's right.
Threatened to quit when he was told to do something he didn't want to do. I tell you what, and by the way, in the last couple of days, he's sparked quite a controversy by basically going against the White House on both Black Lives Matter and on this whole YouTube effect.
Yeah. He's he got in trouble
Comey.
for telling the truth. Yeah, James Comey is a serious character. You're absolutely right. Now, if that doesn't brighten your day, think about this. Thick cut peppered bacon, because that'll do it. Liz Peek, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Take care.
41 after. We'll be right back.
Taking a closer look at the stories that affect you most with a big dose of common sense.
Shout it, shout it, shout it out loud. Shout it, shout it, shout it out loud.
45 after the hour.
If you don't feel good,
We are not cholesterol free, and we're a little spicy. Live with it. Jeez. Wouldn't we all become such a bunch of candy? Yeah, you know. When did that happen? When did America become such a pile of wimps and whiners and weasels? Good God, people. Real men and real women, that's okay. Real men and real women are certainly okay. And yes, there is a difference. You don't have to like it, but yes, there is a difference. Everybody's offended. Everybody's got their feelings hurt. Oh, I can't believe you said that. Too bad. Suck it up, Buttercup. It's called free speech, and I like it. And I don't need my free speech, rationalized, equalized, neutralized. Forget it. It's my free speech. And if you don't like it, go listen to somebody else. Seton Motley, the president of Less Government, joining me now. Seton Motley, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, sir, very much.
And this is a free speech zone. This is not a safe zone. There's a very good chance you could be offended while listening here, and I encourage that.
There's very little chance I personally could be offended because I don't really get offended. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, you don't know me very well. Give me some time.
Well, when you allow someone to offend you, you're ascribing way too much control over your life to that person.
Oh, absolutely.
And I don't do that. So,
well, when did America become such a bunch of wimps? We can't hear this, and that might hurt somebody's feelings, and you can't say that. And oh my gosh, I mean,
it's largely the result of 60 years of government schools, where they've been trained to do this.
No, we've had government schools for a lot more than 60 years, but see, back in the day, we actually taught things like reading, writing, arithmetic, things like that.
But it was government. When I say government schools, I mean the incredible federal control that now exists. The less localized, yes, there were government schools. There were always government schools, just about. But it's just the fact that the federal government has so much control over it, and they tie so many quote unquote reforms, which are radical changes, to money, and that's how we got to. Yes, I stopped watching ESPN about 15 years ago when the E started standing for estrogen.
Yeah, well, it's embarrassing today to me to look around and see how many people, you can't say that, you can't do this. Listen, I don't care for the Ku Klux Klan. I don't care for the Nation of Islam. I don't care for a lot of things.
But let them fly their yachts.
Absolutely. Let them, because here's what my mother taught me. My mother taught me when I was a boy. She said, listen, the only way to really figure out how, idiotic some of these things are is to listen to what they have to say. I mean, let them say what they have to say, and then you can decide based on what they have to say or what they proclaim, and you can say, what a bunch of idiots, and turn around and walk away. If you don't know what a bunch of idiots they are, how would you know?
Well, and that's the way the left gets around it is by preemptively declaring someone an idiot and thereby not allowing them to speak.
Right, calling them an idiot, and then the left explaining, well, this is what they think, so they can't speak. Allow people to speak for themselves. If they're truly an idiot, it'll show. It'll show.
Well, wasn't it Lincoln that said, better to be silent and thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubt? I don't think the left ascribes to that prescription.
Well, they don't, right, because they want to control the narrative. They want to tell you what's right and wrong. They want to tell you what you should eat, how much water you can flush in your toilet, what light bulb to use, what car to drive, or whether you should be allowed to drive a car.
But you can't choose to kill your kid. That you can choose.
Yeah, and don't smoke cigarettes, but smoke all the weed you want. Yeah, okay.
That one particularly gets me. As a retired musician who never did any drugs, I was the only guy in any band I was ever in that didn't. This let's ban smoking and legalize pot thing is really hysterical.
Isn't it baffling? Yeah. Hey, man. I mean, but cigarette, smoking causes cancer, but not weed. That's medicinal.
Oh, and by the way, just in case everybody forgot, a joint is 7 times hotter on your lung than a cigarette. Bob Marley died of lung cancer. I wonder how he acquired it.
Yeah, that is baffling, isn't it? I mean,
yeah. It's again, once again, they're the science party.
But his glaucoma was taken care of. You see,
he saw 2012. He died of lung cancer.
Exactly, you got it.
Yeah.
But I mean, tell me. I mean, not just the government schools, but nobody's tough anymore. Nobody can, And when you get somebody tough, that's willing to fight back, like Trump or somebody else, they get popular. Well, you don't have to love this guy, but the reason the people like him, most notably, in my estimation, is because when he gets punched, he hits back, and he means it.
Yeah,
and people like it.
They've elected 2 waves of Republicans who were doing nothing to stop Obama and were elected almost exclusively to fight back and stop Obama.
And have done nothing.
And have done literally, I mean, when they preemptively say, we're not going to do the one thing the Constitution empowers us to do to stop an out-of-control executive branch, which is, the power of the purse, shut down the government, the American people go, we didn't elect you to do that. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So, yes, I think there's 2 things empowering. Oh, there's 3 mainly, but 2 we're discussing, one of which is illegal immigration and his position on it, because that was just laying there for decades for someone to pick up.
Yeah.
And the other is, he'll fight. And if somebody says something stupid, he'll go, that's stupid. And
exactly.
That's a big
call it for what it
change
is.
in today's politics.
Yeah, what have the Republicans done? In the immortal words of my favorite liberal, Kurt Vonnegut Jr., they've done doodly squat. But at least... Well, at least Vonnegut was honest about being a raging liberal. I mean, but the people today, they like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, they try to hide from what they are. They don't answer questions straight. They point their finger at other people. Vonnegut, he's like, yeah, that's who I am, whatever. And these people have not done doodly squat, and that's
but Bernie Sanders gets credit for that too.
I'll give you that. He's he's a Marxist. Yeah. He's not exactly honest about what he called for what it is. It's Marxism, pal. That's
well, I've always said the difference between communism and socialism are the same. Communism is just socialism with a boot in the neck, and the boot is always required because eventually people figure out socialism stinks on ice.
That's right. Socialism is just nothing. It's a passageway from democracy to communism. It's a road. Seton, always a pleasure, my friend.
Always a pleasure, man. Thank you.
Seton Motley from Less Government. Amen to that. 52 after on the Steve Gruber Show.